Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel.
Video game movies.
Video game movies. You love some, you hate some, but we're going to talk about as many of them as we possibly can.
Oh, yeah. So we're not going to get to it just yet, but something sparked this. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you guys know what we're talking about, but we're going to get there when we get there.
Yep.
So Ricardo and I are both gamers. We've been gamers
Yes.
since we were kids. And we yeah, definitely got mine.
We
Got my
got the
controllers.
props today. We got the props today.
Got our controllers here. Free advertising for Sony.
Yep.
So we were kids, and we do remember the first video game movie, and it was Super Mario Brothers. That was in
Super Mario Brothers.
1993.
1993 changed the landscape of video game movies
Oh
forever.
yeah. Did you go to the theater to
Forever.
see that?
I went to the theater to go see it. I went with my cousin Adrian
Oh,
and my uncle Junior, and we went and
yeah.
look, watching those movies through the lens of like a young kid
Mhm.
hits differently now than as an adult. But that movie blew my mind as a child, and like even it made
Right.
it made no sense in comparison to the game. It was so vastly different. I was like, "Where's Princess Peach?" the whole time. I was like,
Right.
"Where's Peach?" What's going on? I'm like, oh, we got Daisy. That's cool. Oh my God, that's Yoshi. Like, I remember just losing my mind. We had Dennis Hopper in that movie as Koopa. Dennis Hopper, you know what I'm saying? Dennis Hopper, one of the
So,
greatest villains in movies, is like, you know what? I'm gonna be Koopa in this movie.
well, you're gonna laugh. I mean, this won't come as a surprise to anyone that knows me personally. Even as a child, I was pretty analytical. So when I
Okay.
went to see that, I was confused. I don't know, why don't they look like Koopas? What are those? What are those,
the
like alligators? Like, I don't know what
I
those.
don't
What are
I
they
have
look?
no idea, dude. And they danced and they swayed
What were
from
those?
side to
Like,
side.
they looked. I mean, like it was one of those, like, if you squinted, they could pass for Ninja Turtle rejects, I guess. Maybe, I
It
don't know.
it was so weird. And Goombas in the Super Mario games, you remember,
Yeah.
they're like an inch tall on the
Yeah, these
screen or
little
whatever.
these little
But in
guys.
the
Yeah.
movie, they're like 8 feet
It's like,
tall
what is this?
behemoths with no shoulders. They're just, one of these
Yeah.
guys. You know what I mean? Toad was a person. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, that's Toad. He's
Yeah.
just a guy, and it's like, no, he's not really a guy. They're all dinosaurs who evolved into humans. I was like, I don't know what this movie is,
Right.
but it's a trip. It was an absolute trip as a kid. I lost my mind watching that movie.
And I, obviously a little, you get a little bit older, and then you go and watch it again. You're like, man, this is not it.
This was not the move. This is what we talk about when you attach an IP to something that has
Right.
nothing to do with it. Like the only thing that was connected to the games was like the names
The
Mario,
names. Yeah.
Luigi, Daisy, Koopa.
Right.
That's about it. Everything else, they were just like, hey, dinos evolved into humans, parallel dimensions,
Right. It was just
like
wild.
there was a giant fungus that used to be the king that was all over the kingdom. Look, listen, hopefully everyone has seen this movie by now.
Yeah.
If you haven't, I am going to suggest that you watch it
Yes.
because it's absurd. I own it on Blu-ray. It's absurd
Yeah.
in the most fun way possible. Watch it with some friends and like pick at it, have some popcorn, have a ball, but it's ridiculous. And I don't know if there's an after credit scene, right?
I don't remember what's in it, but I do remember there was an after credit scene.
There's an after credit scene. So we're talking even before Marvel was jumping on that train. It was
Right.
the Super Mario Brothers, and they were kind of pitching that they were going to make a game based off of the events in the movie after the credits, which was hilarious.
Oh, that's hilarious. I do remember a movie before that
Mhm.
that did the after credit scene. It's an 80s movie, and it's based on an animated show. Do you know what I'm thinking about?
Oh man, oh man, oh man. It's based. Ooh, I don't know. Give it to me.
It's
I have
Masters
no
of the
idea.
Universe.
Oh,
There's an
Masters of the
there's an
Universe.
after credit scene with Skeletor, and
I'm gonna
he
have to pull that up again.
and he pops up and he looks right into the camera and says, "I'll be back." He dropped Arnold's line. It was so
It's
funny.
like, yo, I'll be back. And I was like, okay, that's what
Yeah.
we're gonna do.
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
that was 87, and Super
okay.
Mario Brothers came out in 93. So
93.
So, folks, we are not the type of show that wants to slam movies, so to speak.
Yeah, we're
That's
not going to
that.
do that.
There's enough of that online, and it's going to make this show a little tricky because we'd love to say that things looked up since Super Mario Brothers, but it's it was disappointing to say the least.
Yeah, look, not everything is going to land, obviously.
Correct.
And, there's going to be some things that don't work for us. Maybe some things work for me that don't work for Anderson
Right.
and for other people. And it's going to be around. And yes, like, did video games kind of, become what the comic book film is today? Not necessarily. They didn't
Right.
really blow up and take the world by storm. They were the little train that could, and there's some gems out there, there's some great ones. Again, there's some
Right.
ones you can have fun with, but they're not all perfect.
Right. I remember when Street Fighter came out, that was the first time like it kind of upset me because I loved that video game. That was in
Okay.
'94,
Hmm.
and I watched it, and once again, not it,
Look,
not it.
it's another situation, right? Where while watching the movie, I was very confused because I loved playing Street Fighter. The Street Fighter games,
Right.
I adored those games. So when I'm watching the movie, again, I was so young because that movie came out in 1994. So I
Right.
was still very, very young. And I also saw that in the theaters with my cousin Adrian. Me and my cousin Adrian went to the theaters a lot. And we saw Street Fighter. And I remember thinking, none of this matches the video game. But I was also just way too excited to be seeing these characters on screen. Like,
Right.
look, I have no idea why they picked Jean-Claude Van Damme to play Guile, the
Right.
muscles from Brussels to play
Right.
Mr. USA. I don't know why they did it, but I'm a JCVD fan. So I was like, I don't care if he's got this strong accent. I'll take it. It's
Right.
fine. And I mean, again, it's another one of those movies that, like, if you turn your brain off
Right.
and just watch it for the craziness and absurdity of it all, it's like, oh, like, and look, at the end of the day, Raul Julia's
I
performance,
know he was just like he was in it.
bro, Raul Julia as Bison
He was in it, man.
he's arguably the best part of the movie. And
Yep.
like, he's got some amazing lines, for you it was the most, important day of your life, but for me it was Tuesday. And I'm like, you savage, and the whole
Yep.
game over. Like,
Just
come
in
on.
it.
He's in it to win it.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was great. And the following year we got the first Mortal Kombat movie in '95. And at the time it was like, okay, we showing some signs of life here. They once again not critically acclaimed, but that was when I felt like that was the turning point.
Yeah, I think Mortal Kombat, and to this day, like, I thoroughly enjoy Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
I really enjoy the Mortal Kombat from 1995. They have a remake we'll talk about later, but the 1995 version, that was one where I felt like up to that point, that was the closest. We had an actual tournament. We
Right.
had our good guys, we had our bad guys. We saw our heroes team up and, to battle Shang Tsung. So it felt a lot closer to the games as opposed to previous video game movies. It seemed like, no, we know what this is and we're going to make it for what it is. And come on, it's got the greatest video game movie theme song of all time. The Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat theme. Like, you cannot not get hype
It's pretty
listening to that.
awesome.
I use it going to the gym sometimes, but Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, Sonya Blade, we got an animatronic Goro, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that was pretty sick. We didn't have the CGI. It was like, nah, animatronic. We had Kano. It was awesome. Look, it's again, it's not perfect, but arguably, probably top 3 video game movie for me personally, because
Okay.
again, that was one that just, it was the first, I think, because it was the first time I saw a video game movie feel like a video game movie. I think that was the
Right.
first one. Because again, Mario Brothers was really different. Street Fighter was very different, but Mortal Kombat kind of, it hit the tone. It was gritty like the game. It was darker like the game. There were fatalities. It almost felt like I shouldn't have been in there watching it at my age. Just like, I don't know if I should be watching this movie,
Right.
but hey, I loved it.
So once again, still no critical acclaim. A few years pass, and And then we're thinking, okay, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, that was in
Hmm.
2001. And everyone's saying, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. Like, and up until now, just negative reviews, no critical acclaim. And, showed some signs of life once again, but still no critical acclaim, despite Angelina Jolie's best efforts.
Yeah, they had star power. They had Angelina Jolie. Now, I
Yeah.
will say that was an amazing fan cast. I think there might have
Oh,
been a
yeah.
bunch of people when they were, discussing this movie. I was too young to be in that conversation, but I think that when that conversation came up, Angelina Jolie's name was probably like, "Hey, she'd be great," and she was great. Listen, like she was a great Lara Croft. It's a fun movie, but
Right.
again, it's just one of those movies that didn't get the critical acclaim that video games were striving for. They were still trying to get it, and they just haven't gotten it yet.
Exactly. Um, and at the time, it didn't become something until later on in the film industry. At the time, no one even thought about the fact that she wasn't British.
No, didn't come
Now
up.
now it would be like, no, we want somebody British, and
Yes.
when they did the reboot, they cast somebody British,
Yes, they
So
did.
so that was pretty cool. Now, the following year, another movie came out that was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about Resident Evil.
Yep.
And once again, no critical acclaim, but pretty entertaining. And I believe it did pretty well at the box office for a video game movie.
Yes.
And but the caveat was it was loosely based on Resident Evil.
Very
They
loosely.
didn't really go too hardcore with being close to the source material, to my
Yeah.
understanding. I know I'm not a real big fan of the Resident Evil series, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I didn't have a PlayStation growing up. It just wasn't in the cards for me.
Okay.
So I didn't really have a lot of I wasn't really as informed on the Resident Evil franchise. I had cousins who had it, and I would go over to their house and play it for a couple minutes here and there. But I didn't have enough time to really develop in that game in that series. So when I saw the movie, everything was very new to me. So I didn't really sit there and judge it
Yeah.
based on the game because I didn't have that knowledge. So I saw it basically just as a movie. And I remember at the time, I was like, oh man, this was a really fun movie. It had Michelle Rodriguez, and Michelle Rodriguez was very hot at the time. Like she
She
was coming off
was.
Girl Fight, she was coming off Fast and Furious films. Like she was really becoming into her own. And so I remember seeing the poster of seeing Mila Jokovic and also Michelle Rodriguez on the poster. They were like, hey, put
Right.
her on the poster too. So I remember that. But it wasn't until after the movie came out that I actually was able to start playing it more and more and go, oh, wow, this is like the movie was nothing like this game. Like it's very different. And it's crazy because that Resident Evil movie spawned a crazy long franchise.
Right. They kept making them
Crazy long.
over and over again.
Yup. And to my understanding, they didn't do too poorly in the box office. I don't, I could be wrong, but I don't remember any one of them being considered a quote unquote box office bomb.
Right.
I know that critics, tore it to shreds, but it found an audience.
Right.
Like it
Here.
found an audience of people who enjoyed them.
Yeah, and I just had to look that up. Just the first one alone, the
Mm-hmm.
budget was 33 million and it made 103 million.
That see, like,
So, once again, the film industry is a business. So if it
mm-hmm.
keeps making money,
Yep.
breaking even is good, but they want
Yeah.
above and beyond breaking even.
Yeah.
So a side note, not bad for 33 million, like looking back at the time,
No,
you know,
no, not
that
at
for
all.
for the what we saw in that movie in 2002, not
Mm-hmm.
bad based upon that budget.
Yeah, and
So,
and I I feel bad because I have a lot of friends that are Resident Evil fans and they despise those movies
yeah,
because they're just like, hey, we want to see more of the characters that we know. We want to see more of Claire, Jill, Chris, Leon, and they became secondary characters and supporting
right.
characters next to Mila Jokovich's Alice. And hey, her husband directs the movies. Look, he's
Correct.
he's taking care of the fam, and he made her the star of those movies. And some people were about it, but a lot of fans were very angry because they wanted to see who they loved about the games be the
Right.
center up front.
Right. Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
that's him. So, so we're still going here. Like, still no critical acclaim, like, up there. And
Hmm.
we had a few more Resident Evils. We had another Tomb Raider. I'm just going through here. Doom. with Dwayne the Rock
Doom.
Johnson in '05.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson and Carl Urban.
Yeah,
That's that I saw that in theaters too. And again, it was another situation where people like, oh, they changed it.
right.
Now it's about adding chromosomes. Where's hell? Where's this and
Yeah.
that? I don't know. It look, that movie again, it doesn't work for everybody, but there's one aspect of the film that I really like, and it's the
Yeah.
Rock heel turn. The Rock
Oh,
heel turn is the best part of that movie because up to this point, this is when Rock was kind of making acting choices that were different. He didn't want to be seen as just a good guy. So
right.
for The Rock to be like, hey, I want to be the bad guy, and to have this like dark heel turn in the final act of the movie, I was like, you know what? A little applause for that. You get a little applause for that. I like that.
I haven't seen that movie in years, and the only thing that I remember is that they gave us that little first-person view, and
Yes.
to make us feel like we were in the video game. So I thought that was pretty cool. Other than that,
That was fun. Yeah. It's not memorable for a lot of reasons, but it is what it is.
man, and you could just keep going here, like
Mm-hmm.
movie after movie after movie. Like we are not getting a positive review, and I'm not going to go down the entire list,
Mm-hmm.
but it took until 2019
Yeah.
for a movie to get critical acclaim. And up until then, like, oh man, there was a Need for Speed movie 2014.
There was, and
Oof.
it had Jesse from Breaking Bad,
Aaron Paul,
man.
man. And they're thinking, oh,
Yep.
Breaking Bad, Aaron Paul. Yes, this is going to do it. Nope.
Got Michael Keaton in there being the radio jockey. I remember I saw that movie because it had Jesse in it. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'll watch that movie. And I forgot it existed until you reminded me right now.
Exactly. 2016, we had the Assassin's Creed movie.
Oh
And
man.
we're thinking like, Michael Fassbender, he's in
Mm-hmm.
it. He's a producer. So a lot of times when an actor is producing, it sometimes comes out decent because the actor has their hands on the property. And we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking, okay, Fassbender, and he's a really sought after actor at this point. So it's like he's
Yes.
not going to put his hands to something that is, and then once again, just disappointing critical acclaim.
Yeah. They've
So
been trying so hard to get it, but like, and it's some of these movies again, they do have a positive fan response, but critically, they're just getting bombarded with negative
right,
reviews.
right. Um, we ended up getting a Tomb Raider reboot in 2018 with
Yes.
Alicia Vikander in the lead role, and we're thinking, okay, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
We're like a couple decades in at this point. We're gonna get a positive reviewed, critically acclaimed video game movie. No, does not
No.
happen.
Uh, and I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. There was a
Right.
lot that I liked about it. I thought Alicia was great. I loved her as Lara Croft.
I like her as an
Um,
actress, so
I like her. I thought she was great. I
right.
love the physicality of the role. I enjoyed the movie for what it was, and it was one of those movies that when it ended, I was like, they got just enough right that if they make a sequel, they can kind of fix the things that didn't work for everyone.
Right.
And that's what I was hoping for. I was like, okay, well, greenlight the sequel. The fans seem to enjoy it to a degree, and I said if you can at least greenlight one more movie, you guys are close. You guys are close. I think you can get that critical acclaim, and it just never came to light.
Exactly. Uh, that same year, another video game movie came out, Rampage, with your boy Dwayne Johnson.
Rampage with The Rock.
Yeah, $7 Productions, of course.
I I don't know what to say about that one, man.
Yeah.
Joe Manganiello's in it. Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He's got this is when he's filming The Walking Dead, so he's got that Negan swagger still. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he's got that Negan walk and Negan talk, and I was like, oh, that's fun. That's
Yeah.
fun.
So still no critical acclaim. That got a decent audience score though. So
Yeah, it did. It did.
yeah. So, but once again, we're still not there yet. Like I said, it took all the way to 2019. Folks, we're going to give you one moment here. What movie do you think that was? All right.
Yeah, if you could take one solid guess, go for it.
All right. So it's Pokemon Detective Pikachu.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
2019. Wow. And once again, I will go as long as I can without saying the name of that site, but just so we have a number, it's a 68% critic number. 2019 Detective Pikachu. Ricardo, why did it take that long to get a video game movie with a positive review? What about that movie made critics finally go, we're gonna give them a positive score, in your opinion?
I think now I will say, 68% is extremely high for a video game movie. So when that happened,
Right.
it was like, yo, they got it. They got it. They got the critical acclaim, 68%.
Right.
People might think, well, really? Wouldn't a 96 be better? Of course that would be better,
Of
but a
course.
68 for a video game movie is great. That was very positive news. And I remember watching it in a theater and I enjoyed this. Like I thoroughly enjoyed it as a movie. Now, I've never been a Pokemon fan. I'm sorry to the Pokemon fans out there.
Right.
I missed the boat with Pokemon. I missed it. I don't know anything about it. My daughter's into it now, so I'm learning now as an adult. So when I watch this movie, I'm watching it through a very generic fan set of eyes.
Right.
And when I watched it, I think what worked for this movie was they were able to nail a balance between the IP and originality. So they mixed up original ideas but took IP characters that you knew and meshed well. Sometimes when you make a video game movie, if it's too close to the game, you may alienate some
Right.
fans because a video game movie might just assume if you're watching it that you've played the game and you know everything, so they might skip out on certain details and like, oh well, we don't need to put that in the script. They know why they're doing this.
Right.
Where a general fan might be like, I don't know why they're doing that at all. And I think that Detective Pikachu had a good enough original story that could connect with Pokemon fans and generic fans like myself and bring it together really well. So, essentially you have a detective movie. You have almost like a detective noir movie, but you've included Pokemon. And I think that balance where you had a strong core fan base with kids who love Pokemon, and you have adults who grew up on Pokemon, and then you also have an original story mixed in there. And I think that they found the perfect balance for it to work out. And hey, you got Ryan Reynolds. Who doesn't like Ryan Reynolds? You know what I mean?
Well, I just looked at I wanted to see the director. It's Rob Letterman,
Okay.
and he did mostly kids movies. And for all intents and purposes, Detective Pikachu was a kids movie, a family
Yeah.
movie, if you will.
Yes.
And look at, he's got a decent resume here. We have Shark Tale, Monsters versus Aliens, Gulliver's Travels, Goosebumps, and then Detective Pikachu. And good for him and good for them. They finally broke it. They broke
Yeah.
the curse of the video game movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was always going to be negative. Uh, Pokemon wasn't really a thing for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I saw it as I was a general audience person. I wasn't a fan of the property, and
Mhm.
I enjoyed it. It was great. And uh it looks like that same year. I mean, we don't really talk about animated too much, but apparently the Angry Birds movie 2 came out that same year in
I missed that one.
2019.
Sorry.
Yeah, I missed both
I
of them.
missed that one.
That was 73%, but we're focusing more on live action, for the
Mhm.
sake of this argument here, discussion rather. Um, so the following year, we had another positive reviewed movie,
Yes, we did.
Sonic the Hedgehog, and that just made positive at 63% for the critics.
Mhm.
So, for me, I felt that obviously there's no way they could have known when they were filming, like to kind of pull from Detective Pikachu,
Yeah.
because it was the year after. So they were kind of doing most of their own thing. And now we're seeing a trend where we're not really taking ourselves seriously.
Yeah.
It was just Jim Carrey at a 10 as
Yes.
Robotnik. you know,
Having a time of his life, man.
we have James what's it, Marsters?
Marsden. James
Marsden,
Marsden. Yes.
in the lead. And just a fun movie.
Yeah. It was it's another okay, I'm going to backtrack a second because we got to talk about the original design of Sonic the Hedgehog that came
Yes.
out. Now this is one of the
Ooh.
reasons why I think the movie got such a part of the reason why I got a positive reaction, because I feel like the fans felt almost respected in a way, because the original design for Sonic that came out, for those that remember, it wasn't the most eye pleasing. It just didn't look like Sonic. It looked like somebody who had never seen Sonic and was given a description. They tried their best. It looked very odd, and the internet went crazy, man. The internet was like, hey, this design is awful, we hate it. And we had animators
Right.
creating the original Sonic design and said this, and they said, you know what, we're going to postpone the movie and we're going to redesign Sonic the way he looks in the video games and in the cartoons, because that's what you fans want. And when they did that, I think they earned a lot of brownie points
Yeah.
from fans. So now fans are going in. When you go into something enthusiastic, you're more likely to walk out enthusiastic. You're going
Right.
in looking to be happy. And I think that played a role. I also think, again, like Detective Pikachu, Sonic the Hedgehog, you have Sonic, and then you had a road trip movie, and they combined it. So you
Yeah.
have these characters that people know, and then you have this road trip movie that is it's kind of his own thing, and they just mesh together really, really, really well.
Yeah. It was great. Ben Schwartz as Sonic. Great
I love
casting.
him as
Yeah, yeah,
Sonic.
yeah.
That's my boy, bro. That's I
Yeah.
love him,
Little
man.
shout out to Parks and Rec.
Yep, yep.
So, but just a fun movie. The sequel did well. Um,
Mhm.
the sequel, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 came out in 2022. That's at
Yep.
a 69%. So, um, and there's one other movie with a positive review, and a lot of us, a lot of you guys won't know. We didn't even know it was a video game movie when we watched it,
Not right away.
and it was in 2021, and it was Werewolves Within. It's
Yes.
at a whopping 86%. It's the highest rated video game movie of all time. Um, Before we get into it, I enjoyed that.
I I watched it and I remember hitting you up and I was like, I just saw
Oh yeah,
Werewolves Within and it is so fun. I said, I love the cast. You got Sam Richardson, and I'm going to butcher her name,
yeah,
and I am so sorry, but I believe it's Milana Van Trube. I'm sorry, the girl
yeah.
from the AT&T commercials.
Yep.
All right, her. You know what I mean? And then my favorite, Harvey, from What We Do in the Shadows. Harvey Guillen, amazing cast, but that movie was so fun.
It was great.
It knew what it was. It was a great comedy, but it also made sure that it never forgot that it was a mystery film. So the whole time you're trying to figure out who this werewolf is. And I love that movie. I tried to put so many people onto that movie. And then when I found out it was a video game movie, I was like, that's even better.
Yeah. So before we get into the next part of our discussion here, uh, anything else that you can look up to my understanding?
Mhm.
By the way, before we do that, the number 6 highest rated video game movie is the Mortal Kombat reboot in 2021, and that was 54%.
54. Yeah, it just
Still,
critics just it
once
yep,
again,
the critics went right back and it was like, nope,
yeah,
we're not feeling this.
right.
Um how did the fans feel about that? Did that have a little bit of better score with the fans?
Um,
Because I know
mm,
I've specifically talked to people who enjoy that movie. They were like, "Oh, I loved it." And it's again, that's another situation where when I watched this new Mortal Kombat, there was a lot to take away from it. There was a lot to like about it. We had the hard R, which I know a lot of fans have been asking for a
right.
long time, and then even the cast. Like, come on, we had our boy in there. Oh God, how do you pronounce his name? I'm so sorry. He
I don't
played
know.
Scorpion. I don't want to butcher it.
Oh, I'm
I
bad
don't
with
want to.
that.
I
Yeah.
know. I feel so bad. I don't want to. I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh God, I'm going to butcher this name so bad. Uh, Hiroyuki Sanada.
Okay, it's
I'm
not bad.
trying. I apologize, but you had him playing Scorpion. Like, come on, you know what I mean? And then Louis Tan. Louis Tan, we had playing. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, no disrespect to Louis Tan. No disrespect to Louis Tan. But I was actually thinking of Joe Taslim, who plays Sub Zero, you know what I mean, from the Raid films and whatnot. So we had like when those announcement came, I was so
Yeah.
excited. But yeah, what was the fan reaction to that one?
It was actually a very good audience score,
Okay,
86%.
okay, yeah,
86%. So,
okay,
but for the most, just for the discussion purpose,
hmm
every other movie did not get critical acclaim that's ever come
yeah,
out. And
yeah,
Um, if we just look at the small sample size, uh, the ones that we've discussed, it's Werewolves Within,
Hmm.
Detective Pikachu, Sonic 1, and Sonic 2,
Yeah.
based on the properties, but pretty much an original story. It wasn't like they
Hmm.
went exact adaptation.
Yeah.
They pulled elements from the source material and they breathed life into it for a fresh story.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, based upon what we've seen, they haven't really taken themselves seriously, and
Yeah.
that has found critical acclaim,
Yeah.
um, as far as that goes. And maybe there's a chance things are changing. I can't talk about the other production companies because they're doing something else that we're going to get into in a second. But uh, PlayStation Productions has decided
Yes.
they want to produce their own movies. And
Yes.
before it would be like another studio above them, typically the Sony movie studio or a different movie studio doing one of their properties. Um, I besides Tomb Raider, I don't know what other properties would fall under them, but
Hmm.
uh, so in a way, they want to kind of have their own Marvel Studios. We're in charge of our own movies. We don't have to answer to anybody else. We're producing our own movies. And the first movie that they put out was Uncharted in 2022. And once again, wasn't it? Back to that lack of critical acclaim. Um, I will say this: there were pieces of okay, maybe this can work, and uh, with that, it's they had the little like thing in the beginning.
Okay.
PlayStation Productions. It was I don't know what that's called, but the little vignette that
Hmm.
almost like the one you see at the beginning of Marvel Studios, where you see all the
Okay.
characters, and when the DC Studios has their thing, and PlayStation Productions, you see all the characters. And I said, okay, I see what you're doing there. And then we had to wait all the way till the credits to to hear the Uncharted theme song. But you and I are a big fan of the Uncharted series,
Love the
and
series.
you know, even just ignoring that just
It's
wasn't for me.
look, I'm gonna point out the elephant in the room.
Okay, go for
So
it.
obviously, Tom Holland is a fantastic actor.
Yes, he is.
Amazing on-screen performances. He's great. I try never to allow a casting choice really bother me. I've learned my lesson when I was very young to let things play out, and you might be surprised. But there was just something even afterwards where I was just like, man, I feel like Tom Holland just wasn't the right fit
Right.
for Nathan Drake. It just he felt very young, and that's okay, but it was just one of those things where I was like, I get it. It's a studio move. Tom Holland was hot. He again, great actor. You know what I mean? But it was just different. It was just different. And
Right.
it just, I know a lot of people had a big issue with it. They were
Right.
like, they were like Tom Holland, like no, we want the scruffled,
Right.
middle 30s and whatnot and everything else. But hey, they tried to do what they
Right.
needed to do,
And
and
and right. And once again, we come back to it's a business.
it's
So
a business.
we know why they did that.
Yep,
He's he's known as Spider-Man in the MCU and the
yep.
Sony Spider-Verse. Excuse me. So they want somebody young so that if
Hmm.
it's successful, they can continue the franchise and then we can eventually
Absolutely.
get there. And that's why we had a young Sully, Mark Wahlberg. So we as fans might feel a certain way, but the studio's thinking about money. So that's why
Yep.
they did that. And the director, Ruben Fleischer, he didn't have a bad resume. Look at this. Zombieland, 30 minutes or
Oh,
less. Gangster Squad, Venom, The Mule. He didn't direct that, sorry. Um, Zombieland Double Tap. And then he was a producer on Venom Let There Be Carnage and
yeah,
then Uncharted. So for the most part, not a bad resume,
yeah.
as far as being a director, but this one did not hit.
Yeah, and again, to be fair, I know plenty of people who watched it and said, "Hey, it's a fun movie.
Right.
You're gonna have a lot of fun with it." It said it again. It's one of those things where like there's just a couple things missing that if they made a sequel, that they could be like, "Hey, we could put these in and try to rectify it." But
Right.
again, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. It's just one of those things that like it definitely came up in discussions why people felt a certain way about that movie.
Right. And let's look at that Uncharted. Now here we go. that felt like an adaptation of the video game. It felt, I mean, maybe not the story, but
Oh, okay, yes.
yeah, not the story, but it felt
Yeah.
like they were trying, they pulled scenes right out of the video game trilogy and
Yep.
put it on the screen. His climbing, his parkour, the airplane scene, those were
Yes.
all pulled from the video game. So, um, and then the puzzles, they put that in the movie too.
Hmm.
So they pulled a lot from the video game, but unfortunately, it didn't land. Um, PlayStation Productions also has a few movies in development, and we have a Days Gone movie planned. We have a Gravity Rush movie planned and a Ghost of Tsushima movie planned. So I have played Gravity Rush. I have not played the other
Hmm.
two, and you have played Days Gone.
I've played Days Gone. I
And
have.
so, how does that make you feel that there's a Days Gone movie planned with
I'm
PlayStation Productions?
I'm excited.
Right.
Because I enjoyed the game. It was one of those games that had somewhat of a mixed reaction when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Funny story, I bought the PS4 when I saw the game reveal trailer for Days Gone. When I saw that trailer, I was like, I've got to get this. I want to play this. I liked what I was seeing. So to know that we're gonna make a movie based on that game, I'm excited. I'm regardless of what happened prior, I do like that PlayStation is the one that are making these movies, and
Right.
they're gonna try to be as faithful as they possibly can to the games. So that's exciting. And I'm hyped for it. I'm one of my favorite genres of movies is zombie movies. I like zombie movies.
Yeah.
So Days Gone tackles that, and I like to see this post-apocalyptic world with zombies and whatnot. And you have this biker who's searching for his wife out there in the middle of this apocalypse and going into different camps and whatnot. I think it could be really fun.
Yeah, I one of these days I'm gonna sit down and play that because you've been telling me to play it for a few years now, and I'm I I game a lot.
Yes, you do.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I am a bit of a trophy hunter, and if I play a game enough, eventually I'm gonna want to platinum it to get all the
Yup.
trophies.
I have seen all the platinum posts, and I'm like, my boy is getting all them Riddler trophies. They all getting caught.
The funny thing is I've never platinum a Batman game.
Yeah.
I've never done it with the Rocksteady games.
Yeah.
I platinum the Telltale games because those are a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
easier. But that's funny. But for the most part, that's me. I'm getting those little
Yep.
collectibles here and there. And I don't do this every single game, but from what I hear, Days Gone is a game that I might be able to do that, because it's about clearing a map out, and that's the
Yeah.
type of stuff that I get into. But knowing that there's a movie coming out, I'm probably gonna end up playing it. I may not platinum it, but I might play through it at least once. I'm not a zombie game guy. I'm not really a horror
Mhm.
game guy, but I hear that with the hordes, it's just what makes that, and
Yeah.
I heard the story is like really, really good. I keep hearing.
The horde dynamic is what brought me to it. I was like, wait, I get to go against hordes of like hundreds and hundreds of zombies at one time. I will say we talked about this and we won't go too long because we're here to talk about movies.
Right.
It took me a good solid maybe 3 to 5 hours before I really got into the game. But once I got
Okay.
into it, I was like, all right, we're good to go.
Fair. Fair. Okay. So we now have to talk about another medium, and perhaps so the argument has been that we've been trying for years to get video game properties to work on movies. And maybe we've been looking at it from the wrong lens because up until we said it, up until 2019, when Detective Pikachu came out, we had decades of
Mhm.
movies that were not critically acclaimed. And perhaps the reasoning is that we can't get, as far as fans go, we can't replicate that feeling you got from all those hours and days and weeks and months that you spent with a video game playing as that character and just compress it into a couple hours for a movie. And that's what possibly why we haven't been able to do that. So, what are your feelings on that matter?
It's a very interesting point because I do believe that there is a way to
Right.
make critically acclaimed video game movies. I do think there's a way that we've seen it's doable. It is possible. but there is something to be said. I think it's one of those situations where I feel like certain games would absolutely do better as a series that give you a lot of time to grow with these characters. Like you said, like when you play these video games, some of these games nowadays can go from anywhere from 15 hours, 30 hours,
Right.
100 hours.
Right.
Like you're spending a long time. And what we subconsciously do is we inherently put ourselves into that character as we're playing. You
Right.
know what I mean? We're seeing it through their lens, but we're playing the way we would be in those situations. So we get to really be in depth with that character. And in movies, get a 90-minute runtime, maybe 2-hour runtime. Sometimes you don't have enough time to really get that same feeling. Again, I do think certain games can work as movies, but I do think that it's probably more probable that you're going to get a better retelling of a game in a longer format like a television series. I don't want to skip movies, but I
Right.
do think that there is an argument to be made when it comes to video game adaptations in a longer format. You're going from maybe a 2-hour runtime to maybe like an 8 to 13 episode series. You're
Right.
talking 8 to 13 hours. And nowadays, TV shows, sometimes they last an hour 15. So you're getting 8 to 13 of that. You get a long time to really grow with the characters and experience things from the games that might not make it into a movie. So I understand why the argument exists.
Yeah, and so that's where we're at right now is, well, maybe studios are want to lean towards TV to see what we can do there. I mean, we're in the golden age. I don't want to call it the golden age of television, but it's streaming is king right now for
Mm-hmm.
movies and for but mostly because of television. People are, your bill it looks like that because you have all those streaming services. You're getting them for the movies, but excuse me, you're getting it so you can stream the movies once they hit, but the TV shows is how they hook everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And um, it looks as though that uh, we have video game properties going to TV here. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because we talk about movies mostly, but the most recent one I can think of is, well, it was based on the book as well, but The Witcher did really good.
Yes.
Well, rather, the Witcher did really well. I believe it was
Mm-hmm.
both the book and the video game, so
Yes.
they did a little bit of both. So that did really well. And I don't believe Halo was well received. So they did
Yeah.
Halo. Um, but we have upcoming shows, once again with PlayStation Productions. We have Twisted Metal that's going to Peacock. We have one of my favorite series ever, God of War. That's coming to Amazon
God
Prime.
of War.
Amazon Prime. And then we have Horizon Zero Dawn, entitled Horizon, coming to Netflix. So PlayStation Productions is saying, okay, we're going to go to whoever's going to take us and we're going
Mm-hmm.
to produce the shows there. And I mean, all those properties we can go into, but there's one on the air right now, which is what sparked this whole discussion to begin with. We're talking about The Last of Us on HBO Max.
Yes, we are. A good buddy of mine from the chat, Mr. Anthony Pizarro, was like, "Hey, The Last of Us was great.
Yeah, man.
I would love if you guys talk about video game movies." And when I said, "All right, yeah," and Last of Us came up, and only one episode is aired. And in my opinion, if the series follows as strong as the first episode is, being as faithful as it was to the game, and really getting that time to be a part of these characters, if it continues on the path that it is now, it probably is going to get a lot of critical acclaim. And so far, the critical acclaim is very good. So far, from what the reviewers have seen, the critical acclaim
Right.
is pretty high.
Yeah, absolutely. We got your boy Pedro Pascal as Joel.
He's
you know,
daddy right now. He's
yeah.
daddy.
What is it? The single dad cinematic universe. He's
Yes.
the best single dad.
Yes, he is.
you
You
know,
got he's the Mandalorian,
yeah,
and now he's Joel. Talk about
yeah,
having a
yeah,
killer few
yeah.
years.
He was a single dad in Wonder Woman 84.
Yes, he was.
So
My man just can't catch a break, but he's doing the best job that he can as a dad. He's doing the best. He's
let me
doing the
see
best.
here.
And man, hey, look, like I said, I
Maxwell
love
Lord. I forgot the character's name. Maxwell Lord. So
Maxwell Lord. It's good, but it can be better. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
every
yeah, yeah.
time. every time Pedro takes a new role, he goes, "Oh, it's good, but it can be better because I'm in it, because Pedro Pascal is in it, and I love it. I'm so happy for
Yeah.
him. He's doing
I,
great, man.
I
He's
I
doing
want him to
great.
play the dad forever now, you know? If you need a
Keep it
dad, ask
going.
him. Um, we don't want to get into it too much, but we have Bella Ramsey as Ellie,
Yes,
as the
yes.
lead. And there was a lot of unfortunately negative reception as far as her casting. And based on either her look for the character or
Hmm.
her ability. She's just played all these other roles and people didn't see her as Ellie. And after one episode, a lot of the critics have said, "Oh, well,
Yeah,
okay, she's shown us something.
yeah.
Let's see where this takes us." And I wanted to look at that because you and I, with our acting background, we think about things like that too when a casting is announced. And even sometimes we'll get taken aback when we hear a
Hmm.
casting news, and then we go, you know what? Let's see what they do,
Yep.
and then we'll take it from there. I like saying, I want them to prove me wrong. If I
Hmm.
feel you were a miscast, then prove me wrong. And that's so satisfying to me when I get proven wrong.
Yeah, when they go in there, they just crush it. It's great. And Bella, it's funny because, like you said, there was a negative reaction, and some people felt that she looked a little too rough around the edges in
Right.
comparison to Ellie from the game, who comes off. Ellie in the game, when you first meet her, is a little bit softer, right? Like she's
Right.
almost like, how did this girl survive so long? She's almost a little softer. But in the show, when we meet Ellie, she's a little rough around the edges. She knows how to. She stands up for herself. She has no problem cursing you out if she needs to. She's aggressive. So, it works in the context of the show because I kind of buy into the fact that, okay, I can see how this version of Ellie was able to survive on her own for a little if she had to. So I think again, it's only been one episode. It's only been one episode, but I think she's doing a great job. I like the casting all around the casting so far. Casting for Tess, casting obviously for Joel, Ellie, everyone who I can't even name at the moment because I'm, drawing a blank. But everything about that show right now seems to be working. And again, it's leading people down that argument. It's saying, hey, look what happened. We got one episode, and I believe it was an hour and 15 minutes, maybe an hour and 20. I could be wrong, give or take a minute or two. But after that first episode, people were like, wow, that felt great. It felt the pacing was right on brand with what it needed to be. And I think it got people really excited for the next week's episode. And it's going to continue to grow each week. And
Yeah.
I think that, again, it's going to make people say, hey, maybe this is the format. So I'm sure that if by the end of this season run, if this hits across the board with fans and critics, I think we're going to get quite a few studios who are going to second guess green lighting these projects as movies and saying, hey, maybe we should focus on making them a series on one of our streaming services.
Yeah, absolutely. And before, I don't want to forget this, I did have to look that up. Apparently, Bella Ramsey came out as non-binary, so
Yes.
that's new information, and
Yes.
it's they them,
They, them.
but just to I don't want to misquote. Um, let's see here. It was at first. I really couldn't care less, and someone would call me she or her, and I wouldn't think about it. But I knew if someone called me he, it was a bit exciting. So apparently non-binary is the box. So just so we can clarify that. Apologies if we didn't say that correctly at first. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I did look into it, and apparently the showrunners wanted somebody that didn't have a soft appearance. And
Yes.
that's what happened. I don't have it in front of me, but there was a list of actresses, and I, I I was just like, wow, this is really cool. Look at all these people here. Um, one of them was Macy Williams, your girl Arya Stark from Game of Thrones. Like
Yup.
that would have been pretty cool,
It
but
would have been. I
it'd
like
been
I like
interesting,
Arya Stark.
but in a way, didn't she already play Ellie?
Yeah,
You
and it's
know?
funny. It's so funny because we're talking about that, and I also
Excuse me.
read a report that Bella specifically was told not to play the game because
Okay.
they wanted Bella's performance to feel as authentic as possible to the script that they were giving her and not try to reduplicate another performance,
Right.
which happens sometimes. An actor will watch a performance and without even knowing subconsciously start following some of those traits because they're trying to match it up as much as possible. But they wanted Bella to give the performance that they could give and
Right.
said, hey, don't even play the game. Just go in there with the script
Right.
what they gave you. And again, they nailed it.
Right. And now I know that,
Mhm.
looking back on that first episode, I said that felt like Ellie.
Yeah, it
You know,
did.
that felt
It
like
did.
Ellie. Now, don't get me wrong, it feels like a very macho Ellie, a very
Yes.
rough around the edges, masculine Ellie that I'm used to, but verbally and acting wise, it felt like Ellie. So, and and I saw that list of, of actresses that they had in mind. They weren't any slouches.
Mm-mm.
So for Bella to come in, Bella must have shown the showrunner something for Bella to
Yeah.
get cast. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I love that game. I remember playing it in 2013
Oh.
when it first came out. I didn't put the controller down until I beat it. It took a few
Mhm.
days. I beat it in a few days. And once again, I'm not a big zombie guy, but just the way the story was made and the framing about it, it wasn't just a zombie story. It was about humankind. It was about us.
Yes,
And I we don't want to give away because we know where the story's going, so we don't want
we
to give it,
do. We
So
do.
yeah, hey gamers, just a little heads up here. Please do not spoil The Last of Us for the people that did not play the video game. We know where it's going, or
We
where,
know where it's going.
for the most part, we know where it's going if they follow the video game, but don't ruin the show for people that didn't play the video game. Okay,
It
just
was it's very yeah, it's very similar to The Walking Dead because I didn't read the books for The Walking
right,
Dead. I went right into the show and people were like, "You know this happens," and I was like, "Leave me alone, shut up, I don't want to know."
right,
And they were like, "Oh, where they're changing certain things." I'm like, "Still, be quiet, don't tell me anything." And it was so good because, like you said, we knew where the first act of this episode was going,
yeah.
and it still got me,
Oh, I
man.
got
It
choked
still
up
got me,
that one moment.
and
That
and
one
and
moment.
again, that's something that them being a TV show allowed them to do because they got to take their time. We got more time with these characters before the events of the apocalypse, if you will. Where in the
Right.
game, you're kind of like, hey, we're in it, but because you get to play as these characters, you're going to feel it. You're going to get emotional. But in a TV show or in a movie, I should say, that particular scene, might have been trimmed a bit. They're like, hey man, we got a 2 hour movie. We'll get past the scene and we gotta go. We gotta hit the ground running. But with a TV show, it's like, hey man, we got 8 episodes to cover this. Let's spend time with these characters. So when these important moments hit, you feel it. And again, I'm sitting there on the couch going, I know what's gonna happen.
Right.
I
We're
know
waiting
it's good,
for it.
and it still got
Yeah.
me, and that's great writing and
I
performances.
thought about it too, and I'm thinking, oh, they're going to do this real early so we can get to
Mhm.
where we're getting. They waited until halfway through the first episode,
Yup.
about I believe like a half hour in,
Yeah, I think
something
it was
like
after
that.
30 minutes. They were like, all right, now we're
We're going
good.
to do
And
that moment. And when you play the video game, it didn't take long to get there.
nope.
That happened very quickly, that one moment.
Hmm.
So thought it was great. Pedro Pascal once again, you know,
Hey
did what
man, he's daddy. That's
yeah,
daddy. I'm gonna keep calling him daddy. That's daddy. And I
did
want to
what,
give a shout out to Nico Parker who played Sarah. You fall in
yeah.
love with her right away.
Yeah,
You
she was
fall in
great.
love with her right away. She was fantastic.
Yeah. Um So let's step away. And I'm sorry, folks. I know I dropped some bombs there. We have Twisted Metal, God of War, Horizon
Yeah,
Zero
yeah,
Dawn, but we're not
yeah.
here to talk about shows. We're here to talk about movies. But
Some movies.
we can talk about that a little bit once we get into the discussion a little bit later. I there's a couple trailers up for upcoming video game adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
A live action one. I don't know if you saw it. We have a Gran Turismo movie
Okay.
coming out. We have that trailer, and then there's an animated movie, and it looks like we're getting a redo on Super Mario Brothers.
Yes, we are with Chris Pratt. I'm gonna do his Mario voice. Ready? Hey, it's me, Mario. There it is. I nailed it, bro. I nailed it. Chris Pratt
Mushroom
being Chris
Kingdom,
Pratt.
here we come.
I can't even. Here we. I can't do it. I
It sounds
can't
like
do it.
Linda Belcher.
Yeah, it's so good.
If you watch Bob's
The,
Burgers, folks.
yeah, the cat. Hey, look, they got Jack Black as Koopa,
Yeah,
and he's awesome. I watch. I mean, it's Super Mario Brothers. I'm gonna watch it regardless. But I love the cast, and it's your girl playing Princess Peach. You remember, right? Anya Taylor Joy
Anya Taylor Joy. Oh yeah,
playing Princess Peach.
yeah.
So that's coming out. So
Looking forward to that. Yeah,
what I think is going to happen is I feel like if that movie does really well, we're going to get that universe now. We're going to start getting
yeah.
that video game universe and crossovers, and they're going to like, hey, we're going to do Mario. We're gonna try to get, Zelda going. We're gonna try to
Yeah.
get all these
All the
characters coming
Nintendo
together.
properties, and then maybe
Yup.
they'll make a Smash Brothers movie one
Yup.
day.
Hey, why not? I played Super Smash Brothers today. Today.
Wow, that would be
You're telling
nuts.
you telling me you're gonna bring all these characters over for a Super Smash Brothers movie? The closest we got to that was like what, Wreck-It Ralph, where we saw these video game characters.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, you give me that, I'm good. But if this movie does really well,
Right.
I think that's the plan. I think they're gonna make a full universe of these movies. Give me Metroid. I'm ready. Like,
Right.
let's
And
go.
just
Let's
and
do it.
and some people like to, for argument's sake, that apparently Wreck-It Ralph is a video game movie. It's
Mhm.
like, I mean, I guess, but it's not an adaptation.
It's
So
not. It's
it's
not.
an
It's not
original
based on.
movie.
Yeah.
It's an original movie based upon, I mean, I don't know what it's based upon, a whole bunch of different properties,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
more about it's more about video game culture in itself as opposed to a
Yeah.
specific
It had
video game.
cameos of characters from
Yes.
other video games. I mean, it's an animated video game-ish movie, I guess we can call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's all it
Ish.
is.
So I don't want to throw shade to fans of Wreck-It Ralph. I love those movies. Those movies are great.
Love Wreck-It
You know,
Ralph.
that's one moment in the first movie just super choked up, you know. Um any thoughts on these? Well, we already talked about Super Mario Brothers. Were you able to check out the Gran Turismo trailer yet?
No, I have not seen that trailer yet. I have
Okay.
not seen it. So, have you seen it?
I have, and I'm not a fan of I'm not a fan of that property. It just looks like a racing movie because that's what Gran Turismo is about. You know, it's about
Yeah. If there
cars
was
racing. So
if there was a video game genre that was at the bottom of the list, not because I don't like them, but I just don't tend to play them, it's car racing games.
yeah.
So yeah, like
All right.
if it's a good movie, I'll be excited and I'll
Well,
be happy for it.
I know you're gonna watch it because Orlando Bloom's in it, and your
Okay.
boy David Harbour's in it.
Yo. All right, you got me. You got me when you got my Stranger Things dad. You got
Yeah,
David Harbour. I will look. I watched Hellboy for him. I will watch anything for David Harbour. So if your boy David Harbour's in it, I'm gonna be there watching it.
yeah. So, and I never know if
Is
I'm
there a
saying this.
release? Is there a release date on Gran Turismo?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna get you again. So, well, another actor, Jaimon Honsu, he's in it too.
Okay.
So he's in it.
Okay.
And the director is Neil Blomkamp.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're going hard. Is that what you're telling me? Is that we're about
Yeah.
to go super hard in a car racing movie with Neil? Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
You know
Neil
what? As soon
Blomkamp.
as we get off, as soon as we end this, I'm gonna go pull up a
You know, we'll
trailer
watch it.
and and I'm gonna
Yeah.
watch it.
And for you folks, I have his resume up here. It's we're looking at District 9, Elysium, Chappie. I mean,
You could just have stopped at District 9 and I
yeah,
was like, you got me.
just
I'm
in the
in.
sci-fi community, Neil Blomkamp, real high. Yeah. We never got that Alien movie from him. It didn't happen. It would have been great.
We'll talk about failed sequels another day
Yeah,
because that one
Sorry, I
hurts
know
my
it
heart.
hurts you.
That
I
one
know.
hurts my heart. I really wanted it.
Yeah. Let's see here. August 11th, 2023.
Okay.
For the
Okay.
Gran
So this year.
Turismo movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, that shows confidence because you're talking about a summer movie and you're talking about something in August, which they like to close summer really strong too. So you have
Right.
your opening summer movies and you've got your closer summer movies. So the fact that it's in August shows me that they're like, hey, we want to close out the summer with a bang. So it seems to me that the studio is behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for curiosity's sake, Super Mario Brothers. I don't know when that's coming out. I can't find it.
I don't know either.
Oh,
I have no idea.
April 7th, 2023.
Okay, so that's right around the corner.
So April.
That's
So
right around the corner.
see, but with animated, you get the kids, man.
You
So
do.
it's hard to bomb with an animated movie because people
Oh,
are looking to take their kids, you know? I
this
mean, it can happen, but it's hard to bomb when it's an animated movie. So
it's definitely going to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? Because it was already going to make money. It almost didn't really matter who your voice actors were to a degree, because the kids were going for Super Mario Brothers. Like again, my daughter, she saw it, the trailer for it, and she was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, that's the Super Mario Brothers." You know what I
Right.
mean? That's Donkey Kong. That's Peach. You know what I mean? She's not sitting there thinking, "Hey, that's Chris Pratt." You know what I mean? That's for the adults. So the kids are going to go. It's probably going to be a really good family outing. So it's gonna make good money. I
Yeah,
can't see this. I can't see this movie bombing in any sense.
right.
So a
It's
sequel is gonna be greenlit, and we're
right.
good.
Right. It's the critical acclaim. That's the thing that we're looking to see. Will it get a critical acclaim? And I feel like it has a chance to because it's animated. It's the live action that's been
Yeah.
the quote unquote curse of the video game movie. Um, so the situation is that so we just talked about TV for a little bit,
Mhm.
but you and I are of the thinking that no, we can make this work movie wise
Yeah.
because there was another genre that was mostly not getting good reviews. The critical acclaim was bad for a very long time. Every now and then something would come out and it would get a positive, but for the most part, comic book superhero movies, they
Hmm.
they were not landing with the critics for a while. It's to the point where it was just like, why do they keep making these?
Yeah.
Why do they keep making these? And you would have your Spider-Mans, you would have your X-Men's, the first Blade did really well, but for the most part, a lot of them weren't getting, critical acclaim. Uh, I think, I mean, old school, obviously we have the Richard Donner Superman movies and then we have the Tim Burton Batman movies, but we're talking about, just for the newer generation. And it was just a situation of why do you guys keep going to this well? And then in 2008, in '05, maybe Christopher Nolan laid the foundation um, with Batman Begins because that was a blockbuster,
Yes.
and that wasn't the first time, because we had the Sam Raimi movies, we had the X-Men movies, they made some money, but '08 was a really special year because that was the year The Dark Knight came out. There's that movie
Yeah.
again. There's that movie
It's
again, and it made a billion, to my understanding. It made a billion, and also that Marvel Cinematic Universe kicked off that year too with Iron
yeah.
Man. So,
Like
you were going to say about The Dark Knight there,
it's so crazy because I remember when Blade came out, and Blade came out, I believe, in 1998. Yeah, it came out in 1998. And for whatever reason, like when I think about Blade, I thoroughly enjoy Blade. I
right?
do, but it didn't land with the critics. And that's one of
Right.
those movies that I couldn't tell you why it didn't land with the critics. Like there's certain times where I can watch a movie and go, okay, I can see where they're coming from. This is one of those movies where I don't know, like it was a 56 with the critics and it was 78 with the audience score and whatnot. So fans generally, I enjoyed it, but it just didn't seem to work. And I don't know what it was, but and then again you had X-Men in the year 2000, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah,
I mean, hey, it gave us Hugh Jackman, man,
it did.
Wolverine. You know what I mean? Gave
It
us Hugh
did.
Jackman. It gave us Patrick Stewart Xavier, which was probably the biggest fan casting of all time.
Right.
Was everyone was like, even as a kid, who should be Xavier? Oh, the bald guy from Star Trek. What's
Yeah,
his name? Yeah,
Picard.
Patrick. Yep, get him. Um, but for me, and maybe there's a bias here. I think Batman Begins was the first time in a very long time where people saw comic book films in a different light,
Right.
where it was like, hey, we can make comic book films, but they can also be treated seriously.
Right.
They can be entertaining for comic fans, but they can also cater to people who have never picked up a comic book. And I think that a lot of comic books before, we talked about it earlier with the video game stuff, where like it was like you kind of alienate your audience sometimes because you expect everyone who watches it to know. And Batman Begins, I think, was the first time where they were like, no, we're gonna focus on making a really good movie.
Right.
And sometimes people forget how good Batman Begins is because The Dark Knight is a masterpiece, in my opinion. But
Correct.
Batman Begins, I think, was what set it off. So there have been other franchises that we've seen in comic book films that were also struggling at one point, but one day they figured it out,
Right.
and now we have a bunch of highly critically successful comic book films, and I don't think it's impossible for video game movies.
Right. Exactly. And regardless of the company, whether it's Warner Brothers with DC, we have Marvel Studios, and Fox had a great run. They didn't always hit, but they had a great one run with the X-Men movies.
Hmm.
Before the rights went back to Marvel Studios, and Sony had a great run with a lot of the Spider-Man movies. It's now shared with Marvel Studios, but they had a great run too. But the point that I'm getting at here is that there was a little bit of time where people were starting to think, well, maybe we should let this go.
Hmm.
Maybe, but now it's everyone's making superhero movies, and if that's the case, then maybe the comic book, or excuse me, then with the comic book and superhero movies, then maybe video game movies can finally, hit that sweet spot, and we won't have to rely on television,
Yeah.
because and then once again, it's a business. You're going to make more money by putting out a wide release movie than you will, selling the rights to a streaming service, so to speak.
Hmm.
To my understanding, that's how it works. You're still going to make your money in this at the other, but the movies are where it's at. So that'll take us to the next part of our discussion, and we're going to start winding down here. So for the record, we believe that video game movies can be successful.
Yes,
we
I believe that.
Yeah, we think that it can happen. We're excited that these shows are coming, but we still want to see video game movies succeed. We don't want to give up. We still
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
there's
not yet.
there's something there. It's a very um a, it's a very successful business. It makes a lot of money. Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, multiple billions of dollars. So there was a really cool question I saw online the other day,
Mhm.
and it was, if you had an unlimited budget to make one video game movie, what would you make?
Man. Well, oof, there's so many, right? There's so many, and you're
Right.
talking about an unlimited budget. So obviously, for me personally, I was like, okay, unlimited budget. I want to create something that I know is almost world building and big and extravagant and whatnot.
Yeah.
So like for me personally, because again, we have a lot of video game projects that are coming out, and there's a lot of video game movies that I wanted that have already been made
Right.
or are being made. So I was like, okay, what's something that I haven't really heard much about. So my first reaction was, because I'm a huge sci-fi horror nut, was like, okay, I want sci-fi horror. I want to go Dead Space. I love the
There
Dead
we go.
Space game. I love the trilogy. The first game and second game are much more horror. The third game is almost a little bit more action. You got a buddy system. I said, but I loved it. I loved the because I've always been you know, an aliens film lover. I love Alien. I love Aliens, and this kind of had that feeling, that grittiness of outer space and darkness and violence, and you're playing as this one character just trying to survive an onslaught of these evil creatures.
Hmm.
And there's for those who haven't played the game, there's also like somewhat of a religion and a cult that's built around these new species of monsters and predators and whatnot. And I was like, man, I would love to do that. And I was like, oh man, give me John Carpenter, who did The Thing, and he does body horror really well, and he does great with practical effects. I was like, give me that guy, and give me Dead Space, and give me all the money to make this movie happen. Because I was like, we can get amazing set pieces, we can get amazing space battles, we can get amazing creature designs, great practical effects mixed with CGI when you need it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So I'm like, just give me that, and it's scary, and that's something that I loved about those games was that it was legitimately scary. Because a lot of times, you could play a game that is a horror game, but you're having fun mowing down the bad guys or whatever. But there was an eeriness to Dead Space, because space is already scary, right? Like Alien said it best, like, in space no one can hear you scream.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's one of my favorite horror movies, Alien. So like, to have that aspect and to do it again, with the technology that we have today and the way that it can look and it can feel, I'd be like, yo, give me Dead Space. That's what I would personally do as a sci-fi horror nut. That's just me.
All right. Excellent choice. Never played it. Not once again, horror. It's not really my
Yeah.
thing. Um, so my initial answer would have been God of War.
Yeah,
That
I've seen that. Hmm.
with the exception of the Batman Rocksteady games,
Hmm.
the God of War series is probably my favorite series. I've been playing that since the PlayStation 2 days. So um they came out with, oh my goodness, God of War 2, God of War 3, God of War Ascension, and then there was God of War, just God of War, and then that was like
Mm.
I don't want to call it a reboot or whatever, but it came out in 2018 with um I don't want to give away characters or anything, but
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but that came out, and now God of War Ragnarok just came out. So I would love just a God of War movie, and I would love to make it like into a series, like a not a TV series, but a saga. You know, God of
Hmm.
War, God of War 2, and I don't know how we would do that. So, but that's getting made into a TV show. So I guess I can't say. Can that be my answer?
I
Unlimited
mean,
budget.
yeah, this is whatever you would do with an
Yeah.
unlimited budget. It's
Well,
whatever you want it to
I would
be.
do God of War, man. I want a God of War movie. I don't want a TV show.
Yeah, a God of War movie, and that's the thing too. I like building sagas, right? Like I love building sagas.
Yeah.
So like we can have a great God of War saga. You can come up with a trilogy. If you can get four, get four. I love movies. You get and like and you know this about me. I'll take long run times. I have no
Right.
issue with a long run time. So if you want to give me a God of War movie that's 2 hours and 45 minutes, I'm in there. I just saw Avatar a couple weeks ago, and that's a 3 hours plus. I have no problem watching long movies. Zack Snyder's
Right.
Justice League 4 hours.
Let's go.
Give me six. Give me six. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, give me the long content. I'm good. So if you give me like a 2 hour, 45 minute God of War, we can do it. It can be done. So like
Yeah.
I back you. I'll fund
Yeah.
it.
It,
Like, you
it
know what I
would
mean?
it would be epic. It's funny. I would have said Horizon Zero Dawn, but that's going to be a show. I always thought BioShock would make a really good movie,
Mm-hmm.
and that was going to be done by Peter Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, fresh off
I
of the
remember.
LOTR trilogy. It's fell through. It's gone through so many different directors. I just looked it up. Apparently, Francis Lawrence has it.
Okay.
I Am Legend, a few of the Hunger Games movies, and last I checked, he's the one that has it.
Okay.
So they said that they're making a BioShock movie. I always felt that I don't know if you've ever played any of the BioShocks, but I always felt that would make a really good movie too.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately, those ones I didn't play, but
yeah,
my brother-in-law played them and whatnot, and I'd be
right,
able to watch and stuff like that.
right,
So I know I know the aesthetic, I know what it looks
right.
like, and I've heard a lot of people say it. I've heard a lot of people put that game over, and so BioShock, I'd love to see that
Yeah.
movie made.
Yeah. So here's a little tip. If you are not a gamer or if you don't have time to play all these games, you can always go to YouTube and just search the name of the game and put in movie, and they put all the cutscenes in. It's a lot of hours of footage usually. It's almost like binging a show, but you'll get to, for the most part, enjoy the game without having to play it, and somebody else is playing. So you could just watch it like you're watching a show or watching a really, really long movie. So, but for the record, my answer is still God of War.
God of War,
It's still God of
God
War.
of War.
So
I'm gonna drop a question on you.
you might have said Days Gone, but now you found out they're making one.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
So
Like it was like oh, but I'm gonna drop a question on you.
yeah,
I'm
what's
gonna
up?
throw a hot. Mike is hot now.
Yeah, let's go.
Off the top of your head, don't take too long to think about it. Who would you have direct a God of War movie?
Oh my goodness.
Think scope, think big. Who?
Yeah, you know what? His name just popped into my head. Zack Snyder. I just
Oh,
Zack Snyder. That was the first person. You know
that's a good
him.
one.
Yeah, I mean Denis. You know,
Denis great.
see, but
Denis great.
a lot of these guys they're trying to move away from properties. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so but see, and it's mythology, so and that's such a tricky thing to do. But you just said who without thinking. I said I guess
Without thinking,
Zach.
without
I
thinking.
guess I don't know.
Zach, I like Zach because Zach does a lot. Like when Zach talks about movies and stuff, there's a love and respect for history and whatnot. And
Yeah,
I think he could do Norse mythology really well if given the opportunity. So when you said Zach, that's why I was like, don't think about it. Just say the first thing that pops in your mind. You said Zach. I was like, okay, we'll go with Zach. We'll see what he can
yeah.
do.
I don't know. And then
Again,
it would,
we're fantasy booking. We're fantasy
yeah, it
booking.
would depend on who plays the lead. And then if it's
Mhm.
an actor, then I would want a director who could like take that actor on.
Yeah.
That maybe they've worked together in the past or something like
Mhm.
that. So it would just all depend on who plays the lead. But as far as that goes, you know what? I won't get it because we're getting a God of War show and I'll get to enjoy
Yeah.
God of War as a
And I
TV
hope
show.
it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, Ricardo, where do you see things going? Like can can the curse of the video game movie get, well, it's already been broken, but
Yes.
can it continue being broken moving forward? We only have the two that we know. Let's see here. I don't see anything else in development here. We have Gran Turismo 2023. We have the Super Mario Brothers movie. We have Sonic 3. That's already ready to
Yeah.
go.
Mhm.
2024. Um, oh man, I'm just seeing in development. We have Borderlands. We have Death Stranding. Oh, look at that, Kojima. We have a Five Nights at Freddy's. I
Oh
mean,
my God. Five Nights at Freddy's has Matthew Lillard. I'm in. I'm good, bro. I'm good.
you
We got
know,
Matthew Lillard in that movie.
we got. I mean, I don't know if these are ever going to be made. I see Metal Gear. There's
Oh, Metal
yeah,
Gear.
yeah. We
Okay.
have Metal Gear. So there's.
Okay.
I mean, are you hopeful that things can change as far as video game movies go?
Yeah, I tend to be an optimistic person.
Yeah.
So I am hopeful. I do think they can do it. I do think we have seen in the past through the movies that we mentioned that critically they can be successful because that's what's driving these movies. People get studios get excited with that critical acclaim. That's what they want, right? They want to
Right.
see, the fresh scores and whatnot on video game
Right.
movies. It can be done. I think that again, they just got to find that balance. You know what I mean? They got to find that balance of taking these IP characters and also telling maybe something original and combining the two, or just making a really tight script. I do think it's possible. Again, I do think that we might get into a little snag if The Last of Us hits a home run. Like if we're
Right.
talking, if The Last of Us maintains a 90 and above from critics, I think that a lot of studios are going to say, okay, because studios are reactionary, and we know that about a lot of
Yes.
studios. So they're going to look at that and go, okay, this might be the move. It's not the same as drawing $1 billion at the box office, but they want that critical acclaim. So they're like,
Right.
okay, so we might end up getting more TV shows greenlit as opposed to movies. But I think movies are a great property. I
They
love
are.
the theater experience. I love sharing that experience with other people. Watching a video game movie in a theater with other gamers is a great experience for us all to have together. So I am hopeful. I think that we can. But I think a lot is riding on The Last of Us a lot more than people realize.
Yes.
I don't think people realize how much is riding on this show of doing really well. Again, Halo came out, it wasn't really met with the best reception, but Last of Us seems to be doing really well. And if that continues, we're going to be talking about, the next few years might be very different for video game movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and who knows if a studio is confident enough, it's like, all right, well, now we know that we can make critically acclaimed video game shows. Let's take another stab at a movie down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep trying. I mean, to be honest, I don't think they're going to stop trying. I just think they'll be hesitant, depending
Yes.
on who is bringing a script, the director, the pitch, etc. It's it. But once again, I just come back to that argument that we had with the comic book movies and superhero movies. There was a time where the discussion was, well, maybe we should stop.
Yeah.
And and now that's not going to happen anytime soon.
No.
I mean, for argument's sake, there might be a little bit of a burnout right now, but I don't think we're anywhere near where with studios saying we're going to stop. You know,
No, no. Even with the superhero fatigue that I know I've been feeling, and I've had some buddies that have been feeling, it's like ushering in a new fan base. For
right?
every one of us that kind of like burns out, you have a bunch of new fans that are coming into the franchise. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? So it's going to be a long going. I don't see an end in sight for comic
yeah,
book films.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, with The Last of Us, I'm looking forward to this, and it'll be pretty cool. Like as we get this weekly release, and we'll see something that we saw in the video game, and now we're going to see people that either didn't play the game, or well, yeah, who didn't play the game, or not,
Hmm.
or aren't even gamers enjoying these moments with us, and that'll be pretty cool. And as far as that goes, I want that to happen for the movies.
I do too.
I want that to happen for the movies, and there's plenty to go off of here. Um, who knows? Maybe these shows. I'm not saying they're going to get canceled and end up becoming movies. I don't know. It's a possibility, but um, that's as far as that goes. So,
Yeah.
Ricardo, anything else you'd like to add as far as video game movies go before we start wrapping things up here?
I want them to succeed. I hope they keep getting made.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And hopefully we can beat the curse of the video game movie. Again, it's been beaten before. It has. And I hope we have a day where we can have more critically acclaimed and fan loved video game movies than the ones that don't necessarily hit. I think that there's plenty of franchises that we can touch on.
Oh,
There's so
yes.
many there's so many great video game franchises that we can touch on. Again, I just gave Dead Space, as just I just threw it out there as a wish. But there's plenty of games out there that can be adapted into movies, and I think can be adapted well. It's just about getting the right people behind them. I think that PlayStation being being the ones that are actually working on the games is a very good thing. I think
Right.
that, we talked about it when it comes to movies, you have studios, you have executives in suits that maybe don't know anything about, the lore of comic books or video games. So they're not really thinking about that aspect. But if you got PlayStation working on it, I'm more optimistic. And even though certain things may not work for everybody and whatnot, it's not always going to be the case. Not everybody's going to love everything, but if we can get that critical acclaim that we're always striving to get, it'd be
Exactly.
great. I
Yeah.
want TV.
Right. And box office too,
Yeah,
because if that happens, both of them, then we're looking at studios saying, okay, let's keep going with this, you know,
yep.
let's keep going
And
with
I
this.
think that I want video game shows to happen too. I do.
Oh
I
yeah.
think there's certain games that develop better as a TV show, but I don't wanna miss out on that movie going experience watching a video game on the big screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want that to happen.
Absolutely. All right. Well, folks, that was our discussion on video game movies and also video game adaptations. We appreciate all of your support. If you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe, we would appreciate it. We would also appreciate it if you let us know how you felt about our discussion in the comments below. Thank you so much. For Ricardo Segura, I am Anderson Marchak, and we are the Panel Bros. Thank you for coming to the panel.